Hey everyone, welcome to chapter 12. This is a big worded chapter. All right, so action skills for building resilience and managing stress, self disclosure, feedback, logical consequences, directives, instructions, and psychoeducation. All right, so we're going to understand stress management and the basics of trauma and how the action influencing skills can be central in building resilience. Explore the nature of interpersonal influence, its specific skills, and our responsibility to work with a client on an egalitarian basis with an emphasis on listening before influencing. And further understand decision counseling and its relevance to influencing skills and action with varying clients and theories of counseling and therapy. All right, so let's break down those skills in action. All right, so ability to facilitate client self understanding and empowerment through careful listening, including counselor, self disclosure, and feedback. So we want to get them in a place of their own understanding through us showing them and emulating empowerment strategies through the way we listen and the way we self disclose and the way we give feedback. Again, I talked about self disclosing and when it's appropriate and when it's not. So as you become more, well versed as a therapist, you're going to know by your own values and your own script when it's okay to self disclose. The key takeaway is just remember, does this benefit my client? If this benefits my client by self disclosing, then just use your best judgment. All right, ability to enable the client to look at the possible positive and negative results of alternative actions, also known as logical consequences. Ability to present new information and ideas to clients in a timely and appropriate fashion. Ability to empower clients with specifics for action leading to physical and mental health through stress management. Ability to help them restory and take concrete action on their issues. That's what's called psychoeducation. Ability to develop action plans collaboratively with clients to facilitate taking home learning and new skills from the session to the real world. So that's a lot of words, but basically what you're wanting to do is when they are working with you in that session, in that whether it's 30 minutes you're working with them, 45 minutes, or an hour, that's kind of where all of just the stuff and the heaviness and the working through and the questioning comes out. Then when they leave your office, that's when the process starts, right? That's when they take everything that's kind of they've dissected in that session and they apply it to the real world. Many of my clients, when they leave, I tell them therapy happens outside of the session room. So it's they go home, they kind of like process everything that's happened, and then maybe an hour later or a day later or whatever, they have these little moments, these little like aha epiphany moments. And that's when you know that what is going on in that room is becoming applicable to the real world. Hope that makes sense. All right, so 4 kinds of resilience. There's mental, emotional, social, and physical. So mental resilience, the ability to pay attention and to motivate yourself to do something that's difficult. I want you just to think about a time when you were like, oh man, can I do this? What is it going to take for me to get this done or motivate my own self, right? So mental resilience is really honing in and paying attention to that skill when it's something that's difficult. Emotional resilience, the ability to invoke positive emotions when you need them, such as optimism, curiosity, or joy. There are times when we need to lean into those good emotions. And again, we need to lean into them when appropriate. Sometimes it's appropriate to be sad. So we want to make sure we're leaning into appropriate emotions. Social resilience, the ability to reach out to others for help when you need it. This also means learning to be the kind of person whom others are likely to want to support and encourage. That's a really big one for humans in general, even therapists. Therapists often will want to kind of keep things within themselves. And we have to also remember that when we need help, we need to ask for it as well. And then physical resilience, the ability to face physical challenges, because sometimes those challenges happen when you hurt yourself, when just an accident happens, when, a life situation happens. So these are the kind of resiliencies that we have within ourselves. A lot of times when we think of resilience, you might think of just one thing. You might think of it as just one thing, but it's really an umbrella term of these four kind of ish or components. All right, so stress. Every single person has stress at least one time or another, more than one time. Stress is the leading cause of what brings clients into therapy. So it's working through stress about something. So stress in itself is a psychological and physical response to change, whether that change is actually happening now or anticipated in the future. Again, like I said before, we all experience positive and negative stresses in life. Positive stressors tend to make us happy and joyful in many ways. Continuous, severe day-to-day stress or a single traumatic incident can be seriously damaging to physical and mental health. Resilience is the capacity to be stronger in the face of adversity and to be more determined, courageous, creative, and optimistic. This influencing skill chapter concentrates on how you can encourage, support, and supply answers to help clients deal with stress on their journey to resilience. That's the one thing you are going to hear a lot of. That term is resilience, because you need that to get through these stressful times. All right, this is just, I'm going to skip past this. This is a chart. You can look at it going through the difference, the performance and health, and all of the different types of stress that, we go through and the various levels. All right, so understanding and managing the impact of stress is necessary for building client resilience. The magic of creative resilience comes from the spontaneous generation of something new out of what already exists. Working through a stressful task builds increased ability to work with stressors in the future. Restoring and decision making are creative practices. Again, when we restory, what are we doing? We're kind of reframing, for one, right? We've learned about what reframing is with our clients. We're learning how, through the reframing, how they're restoring their what's the word I'm looking for? I want to say mantra, but that's not the word I'm looking for. Just kind of like their narrative. So we want to take the story maybe that they've said to themselves or they've told themselves for maybe many years, and we're getting them to write a new story, a new script. And then we get, and then that's the restory. And what happens is then we build more resilience. All right, the action influencing skills are a significant part of enabling clients to take creative new thoughts, feelings, and meanings into real world behavior. All right, we need some level of stress to motivate us, to get us ready for action. So stress is important. We need stress, and there is a good stress, and that stress is called eustress. So that positive stress can provide fulfillment, such as the satisfaction of being able to help another person, graduating from a master's degree program, or helping to build a Habitat for Humanity house. Continuous severe day-to-day stress can seriously damage our physical and mental health. A single traumatic incident can accomplish this in a few seconds or minutes. Severe stress leads to many mental and physical issues. And, these are very kind of basic. I don't want to say basic, but these are kind of things that we already know, because as humans, we go through these things. We go through these issues day to day. Some of our stressors are high, sometimes they're low, sometimes they're in the middle. Sometimes our stress is constant, sometimes it ebbs and flows. But when we learn the techniques of how to evolve in our stress and to restore in our own lives, it helps us with helping our clients restore their, again, their narrative. Right. The body responds to stress in ways that are physically damaging. The major COVID-19 pandemic produced mental and physical issues for many of your clients that still exist today. Some people's lives were completely changed by the pandemic. Stressors have produced results such as the following: 43% of all adults suffer adverse health effects from stress. That's huge. 75 to 90% of all doctor's visits are for stress-related ailments and complaints. Issues such as headaches, high blood pressure, heart problems, diabetes, skin conditions, asthma, arthritis, depression, and anxiety are all stress-related. Stress costs American industry more than $300, listen to me, 300 billion annually. If you just sit with this for a moment and look at that, that is huge. That is huge. And like I said, stress, 75% to 90% of people that enter a doctor's office, it's because of stress. That's the same with entering a therapist office. Whether the therapist is a doctor or whatever, it's, the same thing. So just, to look at that whole picture, stress is huge, period. So we as clinicians need to, number one, we need to manage our own stress so that we can help others with managing theirs. All right, stress management is a remedial treatment for already stressed clients. Stress management techniques are typically focused on treatment and prevention of stress. The TLCs are also instructional strategies that are oriented to physical and mental health, bringing together neuroscience, medicine, and counseling. Exercise is generally regarded as the number one TLC. There's so many benefits, health benefits, physically and mentally, by exercising. And of course, depending on, your exercise level, what some people, can't do that, what's the word I'm looking for? Some people can get out there and jog and run and, sprint and all of that. And, some people can't. Some people can walk slow. But the importance is getting your body moving. When you get your body moving in any capacity that you can, it also connects with your psychology. So it's important to get that check in with your doctor to find out what you can do to balance out your physical and mental health. So here's a chart. This is an example of stress management strategies. Again, I'm not going to read these over, but just you can pause this and take a look at it. These are really good theories and methods. All right, self-disclosure and feedback. This is the one I really want to address. So self-disclosure and feedback are similar to the listening skill of summarizing. They move beyond the summary to add client awareness. Before sharing a personal self-disclosure or providing feedback, counselors need to have a solid understanding of where they are in the relationships they are building. So that means you need to know who you are working with. We don't want to assume how our clients are going to take something. We want to know that before we self-disclose, that we understand our working relationship with our client. All right, both skills are used sparingly and only when the client appears to need more counselor involvement and support. They require careful listening and understanding before sharing your thoughts. Okay, so sharing your own personal experience related to what the client has said. Sharing often starts with an I statement. It can also involve sharing your own thoughts and feelings concerning what the client is experiencing in the immediate moment, in the here and now. What we want to stay away from is saying things like, I understand because I went through that as well. Or I know how you feel. Or I know what you're going through. Those are the things we stay away from because we have to remember that although we can empathize with what someone is going through. We can understand because maybe, hey, we've gone through something similar, but because we are all unique human beings, it is impossible to fully know what another person is feeling, because we haven't been in their, quote unquote shoes. So we just want to make sure that we're saying, like, I remember a time when I went through something similar and this is kind of how I worked through it. Saying things like that, that doesn't make it about you, but it could help them. So doing things like that, the client's hopeful response is well to carefully said, I'm sorry, clients respond well to carefully said disclosure, especially at the beginning of a session. They are often pleased to know more about you at that point. Later in the session, sharing your thoughts and feelings about the client can enable them to talk more openly about their issues. Self-disclosure almost always needs to be positive and supportive. With feedback, presents a client with clear, non-judgmental information on that client's thoughts, feelings, and behaviors, either in the past or in the here and now. And the results of that feedback can be supportive or challenging. Supportive feedback searches for positives and strengths, whereas challenges ask clients to think more carefully about themselves and what they are saying. Sometimes we have to challenge our clients' thoughts with that empathetic confrontation. Sometimes we have to kind of say, this is what I heard you say earlier. I remember yesterday you had told me this, right? And today, the way I'm hearing it sounds a bit different. So can you clarify that for me? Whatever the situation is, we just want to make sure that our feedback, right, is matching, is staying very consistent. All right, the skills of self-disclosure and feedback. So listen first, be brief and concrete. We want to use the I statements, be authentic and non-judgmental, use appropriate immediacy and tense, consider cultural differences, and explore differences. So if it's something that is culturally sensitive or, different than your culture, it is okay to ask them, so how is it in your culture? What is it like? How do you handle conflict in your culture? You don't have to say in your culture. It's use language that is comfortable for you, because you also have to be authentic within yourself. All right, so example counseling session. How do I deal with a difficult situation at work? So what do you think? That is a typo. What do you think about counselor Anna Wumi's use of self-disclosure and feedback? That's in the book. You want to look at that. Was this helpful? What did you notice about effective and ineffective feedback? What would you have done similarly or differently? So I want you to go to that vignette and then ask those questions about self-disclosure and feedback. Ask yourself, was what I just read, was that helpful? And then what did you notice about that feedback? And then think about, okay, this is what I would do, probably the same, and this is what I would do differently. It's just like the article, the suicide prevention article that I have shared. That's a very eye-opening, experience when you're not getting properly supervised. So it is okay to disagree when you learn, especially in internship and practicum, there's going to be times when you are shadowing someone and you might sit back and say, well, I don't think I would do it like this. I think I would handle this differently. And you know what? You may be right. Because just because we are, again, practice doesn't necessarily make perfect, practice makes permanent. So we want to make sure what we're practicing is correct. All right, defining logical consequences. Clients facing possible changes in life direction will often profit from exploring the logical consequences, positive and negative, of change. Negative consequences of changing jobs could include leaving a smoothly functioning and friendly work group, disrupting long-term friendships, and moving teenage children to a new school. Positive consequences might be a pay raise, a better school system, money for a new home, or the opportunity for further advancement. So when we think about Logical consequence, explore with the client specific alternatives with the logical positive and negative concrete consequences of each decision possibility. If you do blank, then blank. So, because they're going to come in with all kinds of stories, all kinds of situations. It's going to be work related, family related, friendship related, partner, just, internal battles. So it's good to, weigh those things and say, okay, let's just kind of paint a picture. That's a strategy, it is a technique. So if you were to do this, what might happen? Or then what would happen? And get them to really like open up and get that dialogue. So clients will change thoughts, feelings, and behaviors through better anticipation of the consequences of their actions. When you explore the positives and negatives of each possibility, clients will become more involved in the process of making their new creative decision. Remember, you're the one that's just kind of throwing out those ideas. They're the ones that are doing that hard work and really thinking about it and, coming up with those solutions. All right, so using the logical consequence skill on a foundation of listening skills, you're going to draw out story and strengths, generate alternatives, identify positive and negative consequences, provide a summary, and encourage client decision and action. And that might be great homework for them. You might say, okay, whatever the situation is, hey, I want you to draw this out. What does this look like on paper? You can have them draw it. You can have them list it. You can have them do all kinds of things. Whatever comes to your mind, put that down on paper. Create a list of alternatives. Create all of the, positive things that can happen out of this and maybe some of the negative things that can come out of this. And then summarize everything that you've, your mind map or your whatever it is that you're going to have them do. And then, you bring that to the session and you work through that. And then you tongue tied, you encourage them to finally take action on what they've, started implementing. All right. Few of us will be satisfied if our decisions reflect only rational cognitive processes. Eliciting and reflecting feelings throughout the balance sheet is vital. Each alternative decision is written down with a list of gains and losses, the logical consequences of each action. Remember, emotions, they are meant to be fluid. We are not meant to be constantly and always happy. That is manic. Constantly feeling sad, that is depression. Those two things are clinical. So manic is clinical, depression is clinical, happy is an emotion, sad is an emotion. Those things ebb and flow. So we want to help our clients, discuss the wins and the losses and be in that and be okay with not feeling okay sometimes. That's when they start feeling shame and guilt when they have this, kind of down moment because they're not supposed to feel down. We need to, express that it's okay and to, give them that reality. Obviously, I'm not reading this, but this is the cognitive emotional decisional balance sheet. So go ahead and just look at this. You've got what are the possible gains for me? What are the emotional gains for me? What are the possible gains for others? And then what are the emotional gains for others? So just go ahead and look at that and it's going to make sense. This is a really good sheet that you can just kind of either, I don't know, screenshot, print it out, or if you have the digital copy from the book, you can print that out and, highlight it, add that to your, portfolio if you want. But this is a really good balance sheet. All right, giving clients information, offering psychoeducation, and making suggestions can be important parts of counseling and psychotherapy. Directives, instruction, and psychoeducation are best received in a good relationship with a solid working reliance. Unless the advice is actively sought, which I strike advice, I teach my students, we are not advice givers, right? We guide, we provide alternatives and solutions. So we want to, try to avoid the advice giving. So unless So basically what it's saying in the text is unless your client is like actively pursuing that, it's very difficult for it to be heard. Sometimes clients come into therapy and they're not really in the beginning necessarily wanting you to give them anything. They just want to be heard. They want to get stuff out and they just want to be heard. Then through questioning, then we start providing them with that guidance and then they are more susceptible to taking that. All right. Instruction and psychoeducation, clear directions underlie instruction and psychological education. These offer specifics for daily life to help change thoughts, feelings, and behaviors. Providing useful instruction and referral sources can be helpful. Sometimes we need to help our clients. They may need to get in touch with a food bank. They may need help in a domestic violence situation. That is psychoeducation, helping them find numbers, find contacts, providing them with documents, literature, handouts, anything like that. Those are psychoeducational strategies. Some others include systematic educational methods such as therapeutic lifestyle changes. With all of these, a collaborative approach is essential. So, it could be a situation where they're in your office or you're doing a virtual session and you can say, okay, hey, let's look this up together. Let's look up this number together. Let's look up whatever this website and let me help you with that. So it might be something just like that. So if those are kind of like the directions, the anticipated result should be that clients will make positive progress when they listen to and follow the directives, use the information that you provide for them, consider your advice, again, guidance, take out advice, that's a book word, and engage in new, more positive thinking, feeling, or behaving. Psychoeducation can lead to major life changes for physical and mental health. All right, so the skills of directives, instruction, and psychoeducational strategies involve clients as co-participants. Again, you're collaborating. Use appropriate visuals, vocal tone, verbal following, and body language. Be clear and concrete in your verbal expressions and time the information to meet clients' needs. Check out whether you were heard and understood. How can you do that? You can do that through clarifying. So asking them, okay, so ask them, okay, so was that understood? You want to repeat that back to me? Let's make sure that like we're on the same page. So, you just want to make sure it's a collaborative experience. Oh, wait, let me see, did I? All right. Sustained chronic or extreme stress accelerates the normal wear and tear on our body and mind. Changing the stressors or changing our reactions to them are key goals of stress management. Again, it is how we look at things. Two people can look at the same thing and see two different, aspects, views, perspectives. So changing the stressors, changing how we see them can change how we react to them. So several strategies can help you achieve these goals. And there are tons of strategies that you will learn throughout your time in counseling to become a therapist, a psychologist, whatever you're going to become. All right, indicating your thoughts and feelings to a client constitutes self-disclosure, which necessitates the following. Use personal pronouns, use a verb for content of feeling. I feel blank. Remember, it's not how does that make you feel. Use an object coupled with adverb and adjective descriptors. I feel happy about your. Express your feelings appropriately. Feedback accurate data on how you or others view the client. Remember the following. The client should be in charge, right? It's their story. You're just guiding and providing. Focus on strengths, be concrete and specific, be non-judgmental, as appropriate, provide here and now feedback, keep feedback lean and precise, check out how your feedback was received. All right, the task is to assist clients with foreseeing consequences as they review alternatives for action. A common statement used here is, if you do blank, then blank will possibly result, right? We want to give them logical consequences to things. Listen to make sure you understand the situation and how the client understands what is occurring and its implications. Encourage the client to think about possible positive and negative consequences of a decision. If necessary, comment on the positive and negative consequences of a decision in a non-judgmental manner. Summarize the positives and negatives, and then let the client decide what action to take. Again, we are setting them up to be in charge of their own life. Instruction providing information or that advice is brief, consisting of relatively short comments to facilitate action in the real world. Psychoeducation is a more systematic way of teaching clients about new life possibilities. This may range from training and communication skills to developing a successful wellness plan. All right, I went just a little bit over 30. So, key points in practice: stress management, self-disclosure, feedback, logical consequences, instruction, and psychoeducation, and finally ending with your portfolio of competencies and personal reflections. Whew, okay, I'm done. Oh, it's dark now. Hopefully you got a lot out of that. Go back to the, discussion, or go back to the PowerPoint, highlight what you feel is important for you. Revisit these things. There was a lot. My mouth is dry now. It was a long day. So I hope you all have a wonderful evening, day, morning, afternoon, whenever you are viewing this, and I will see you in the next chapter. All right? Peace.